What's going on? Episode number 141 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight we're chatting UFC 290. We got Yair Rodriguez taking on Alexander Volkanovski. Cool main event. We got a cool co-main event with Brandon Moreno trying to finally get off the schneid with Alexandre Pantoja. And then a lot of intriguing fights and a lot of crazy juice on a pay-per-view. But first things first, guys, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. And we were fortunate enough to get our boy Pepe Silvia, who you can find on Twitter at Pepe Silvia 716 here with us. One of the sharpest guys in the business. Pepe, how's it going? What are your thoughts about the card?
Doing great, fellas. Thanks for having me on. It's just another card to me.
Yeah.
You kind of get desensitized to all the MMA we watch. I can't say I'm super thrilled, but I am excited at the same time, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. Especially when you're grinding regionals too. It's like you're dealing with 70 shows a year. So,
At
it's what
least,
it
at
is.
least.
Yeah. So, we got a big slate here. So, without further ado, we'll hop right in. First fight of the night. We got Kamwela Kirk taking on Esteban Ribovic. I don't know how you pronounce it. But we got Kirk plus 125, Ribovic minus 145. I have 2 units on Kirk here. I took him at plus 165. I don't think the current line is terrible, but I don't think it's great either. I guess my broad strokes view is I don't really rate Kirk that highly. I bet Damon Jackson against him fairly large in his last fight. Obviously, he has all the flaws that everybody's going to talk about this week. He's got terrible cardio. He's kind of a defensive liability, and he seems like he can be flaky at times. With that said, though, I do think he's a very good athlete. He's got very, very strong jiu-jitsu, and even on the feet, despite having bad defense, offensively, he's technically sound and he hits pretty hard. On the other side of things, you got Esteban Ribovic coming off a loss to Loic Radzhabov. I can't really give him too much shit for that just because, Loic's Loic. I mean, he's a Russian wrestler who's going to wrestle you all fight. But at the same time, I guess why I side on the Kirk side and why I think this should be closer to pick rather than Ribovic's fave is I think Ribovic has a lot of the same issues that Kirk has. He lacks defense on the feet. It's basically non-existent. He has pretty poor cardio. I will say I think he fights through his cardio issues a bit better than Kirk does. But nonetheless, the 2 times the guy's been out of round 1, he's noticeably slowed down. And then in addition to having those issues, he's just a very poor grappler. I know I could forgive him for being taken down by Loic if I hadn't seen the same stuff happen regionally. He's got really bad hips, and his kind of default to get up is to just try to give his back and get right up. And against a guy like Kirk, Kirk, if he takes him down, has got great jiu-jitsu and I think has a decent amount of upside here for just hitting takedowns, getting easy back takes and controlling him and or subbing him. Obviously, if the fight goes late, I expect Kirk to slow down throughout this fight. Maybe takedowns come harder. But irrespective of that, we saw Loic dead gassed out, hitting, fairly easy takedowns against Ribovic late. So I kind of view it as the best case scenario for Ribovic is, these guys swing on the feet. And Ribovic is a big hitter, probably a bigger hitter than Kirk. But Kirk's pretty durable. I don't know how durable Ribovic is. So I feel like if they swing, maybe you edge Ribovic, but it's pretty competitive. And if not, and Kirk actually fights optimally, which I do have some concerns about because he doesn't always fight optimally. But if he does fight optimally, I think he gets takedowns pretty easily, and I think there's a lot of upside for him controlling this fight and subbing. So I'm on the Kirk side of things. Pepe, what are your thoughts?
So the way I played this fight was I spread a unit out between Kirk submission round 1, Ribovic's KO2, and Ribovic's KO3. Kind of going with the Gugabe approach for this fight, but it kind of made the most sense to me with where the money lines were. I didn't really want to take a stand on either, and I didn't really want to pay juice on the under 2.5. And it's kind of like a volatile spot, so I thought that was kind of the best way to go about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Lags, any strong thoughts from you here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I fall myself more on the Ribovic side just because I don't think Kirk is that reliant of a wrestler. Again, even if he does try to, like you already touched on, I don't think the cardio is there for 15 for him to do it. I favor the power and the striking of Ribovic. I think he probably knocks him out, but like Pepe said, the under is way too juiced to even play it. So just a pass.
The one thing I'll say with regard to that, because it's and don't get me wrong, I mean, I obviously saw the Billy Q fight, which was a horrendous look down the stretch, but if you go back to like early Kirk career, his other 2 losses were both by decision, but they were a majority decision and a split decision. And he grappled hard for 15 in like both of those fights all the way through. Now, he was dead gassed, but I only bring it up to say I feel like the market's perhaps not realizing that, the odds of him being able to hit takedowns late are probably better than they realize. But we'll see. I understand the 2-3 plays on Ribovix for sure. Moving on, Pepe, I'll throw it to you here. We got Jesus Aguilar minus 144, taking on Shannon Ross plus 124. Are you siding with Mexico here?
Oh man, I kind of lean Mexico. I don't, but I don't want to pay any juice on this guy for the money line. Although I think I do slightly favor him. I guess I'm having a hard time kind of figuring out how I think this fight's gonna play out. What stood out to me and what I thought the best play was for this one was the over 2.5 at plus money. I don't give Shannon Ross that much finishing upside. Aguilar's, he's a tough Mexican. And, the only kind of finish that Aguilar has gone is the guillotine submission. So it's like, how much do you really, like, what percent can you really put that at? Like I could definitely see Aguilar getting some takedowns and getting some top time. I just don't think he hits a guillotine at like, a 50% clip or anything like that. But I do like I see why people are playing Ross as a big underdog. But yeah, at the current lines, I think over is the best spot.
Lags, how about you?
Again, kind of similar to the first fight, and I find myself on like the other side of the market. I think Aguilar probably can get takedowns, but again, kind of what Pepe said, I'm not trying to lay juice on this guy. I think both these guys are fairly mid in general, but I understand the process of Aguilar. I think it's a decent matchup for him. I think he can get takedowns.
Yeah, I have a small bet on Ross. I actually hadn't even looked at that total. That seems kind of crazy, actually, that's a plus money total.
Because pretty much I feel like the under is Aguilar skewed, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point, though.
Yeah.
I guess it's because Ross got KO'd in his last 2 fights, but I mean, Salvador and Rodriguez are both huge hitters for flyweight. I don't think Aguilar is that. In terms of my thinking on the fight, I'm not. I mean, Aguilar can certainly get takedowns. But I guess for me, the reason I lean to the Ross side is I don't think his wrestling is that good. I think it's a lot more strength reliant than it is on actual technique. And I actually think he's super susceptible to being counter grappled. We saw it against Henderson Ferreira on Contender Series, who's not a very good grappler, kind of easily getting top time and getting the dominant position. So like he could get Ross down, but I'd be a little surprised if he just top timed him. And I think Ross is a better striker on the feet here by a decent margin. So yeah, I lean the Ross side. Nothing passionate here. It's a small play for me. But yeah, I mean, I really like that over, Pepe said. And I'm seeing GTD plus 155, which seems also kind of insane to me. So
yeah. I think also Aguilar, just lost in the first round to Tyra. Yeah. So I mean,
yeah, that's a good point.
And even his finish on the Contender Series, didn't that come over the 2.5 minute or the 2.5 round?
Fight. Yeah, at 420, and or no, it was right before 2.5. It was 156 round 3.
And he's pretty damn durable. Like I don't really see Ross like turning his lights off or anything like that. So I was kind of surprised that it was plus money over 2.5.
Yeah, and even
GTD might even be like an even better play.
Yeah, like even the Ferreira fight. I mean, Ferreira was literally corpse gassed, and I think both Ross and Aguilar both have pretty decent cardio. Like I doubt we get a cardio stoppage here. So yeah, I mean we'll see what happens. Moving on, we got Cameron Simon taking on Terrence Mitchell. Simon's he's not the biggest favorite on the card, which is wild for a pay-per-view. Cameron Simon is a big favorite though. He's minus 550. Comeback on Mitchell's plus 400. Lags, any thoughts here?
Well, like we were talking about right before the pod started, this is one of the 8 fights that somebody's over minus 300 out of the 14 fights that we have this weekend. Mitchell comes from the Alaska FC, has a little bit of wrestling, shown a little bit of wrestling his last 2 fights, but not that good. Mostly low level shit. I think Simon finishes him pretty easily. I think it's a setup.
Yeah, I more or less agree. I mean, there's not really a lot to say. Simon's a pretty good prospect. Mitchell is not a prospect. He's a bum being thrown in there to get killed. I kind of lean the under, although I'm a bit skittish about playing these under 1.5s. I think Simon KO minus 130 is pretty good. I'll probably take some small combination of like Simon KO, Simon round 1, Simon round 2. What are your thoughts, Pepe?
I took the safe ITD at minus 185. I was gonna ask you what you thought about like round 2 props because those are obviously much better.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't think it's bad. It's possible Simon takes 3 or 4 minutes to get going, which I feel like if you're going to bet round 1, you might as well sprinkle round 2 as well, right?
Yeah. Do you think he can get taken down early and like shown any resistance?
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I
would
know
say
that
minimally.
what was it?
Like the guy shows a little bit of grappling, but not like enough really for me to be like, oh yeah, it's going to give him trouble,
I mean, Kozlo took him down, but I actually think Kozlo is like a pretty good grappler while he's fresh, whereas I don't really think Terrence Mitchell is, So
yeah. I bet Kozlo in that spot.
Which was a pretty good bet as it turned out, but
such a shit show.
It was absolutely. Yeah, I do not think we're heading towards that here, personally. But we'll see. Moving on, we got Vitor Petrino taking on Marcin Prachnio. I haven't bet it. I've really gone back and forth on this. Like, I really want to bet Prachnio at like plus 250. It's just like really, really hard for me to unsee how bad his defense is. And like, in spite of what we've seen, on this recent run for Prachnio, I'm not sure how much of that is he's cleaned up his defense and how much of that is he's just fought like a really low level of competition lately. But with that said, I mean, Vitor Petrino has fought nobody. The guy himself has no standing defense at all. I would say the most impressive thing I've seen with Petrino is, he was able to land 7 takedowns in his last fight and was still coming late in round 3, which was something that surprised me because I kind of had him targeted as a guy with pretty poor cardio, and it didn't turn out to be the case. But I think even with that being the case, I really would be surprised if he had extended grappling success against Prachnio. On the feet, they're probably going to swing a good bit. And I think Petrino obviously can knock him out. It's probably the most likely outcome in this fight. But, I mean, these are 205 pounders. Prachnio is probably the more well-rounded striker, and Petrino doesn't have much defense himself. I don't know. Prachnio's cardio and his general lack of defense scares me, but I'm thinking of pulling the trigger here. What do you think, Pepe?
So I kind of like goes the distance at plus 300. What I've noticed between both of these guys is they like to clinch up a lot. And I think a lot of Petrino's finishing upside is in round 1. And I definitely do think he does have some for round 2. And I think it goes down tremendously for round 3. And they're in the bigger cage. Prachnio has been fighting a lot safer lately. He's not as reckless as he used to be. He barely puts himself in boxing range, because he's been like almost all kicks based recently. So I think he's gonna be like afraid of the power, and I think he's gonna play super cautious. And when things do get kind of dangerous, I think he's gonna clinch up. And Petrino is kind of naturally doing that against Pleasure Man in their last fight. And like I know Pleasure Man ate like a ton of bombs that Prachnio probably wouldn't eat, but he was kind of just like throwing himself into boxing range. So
yeah, I mean, he's a horrible striker, Pleasure Man.
Yeah, that too. So I don't know. I mean, Prachnio by decision is plus 600. Could I interest you in that? I don't really see him. I don't see him finishing Petrino.
Petrino does seem durable.
Dude, he couldn't even finish William Knight, who was like trying to let him finish him.
Lags, what do you think?
I guess what I would add there to like the decision, like just giving merit to it. I think if you're playing Cracknell, that's how I would play, because I just don't see him finishing Petrino in general, even though he does lack some defense. But I actually think the number is fairly justified. I actually think, even though, you touched about a little bit in the cardio his last fight, I do think even though he slowed like previously, he's got better cardio than Cracknell. I think he can hit takedowns here pretty consistently. And on the feet, I think I favor his power over Cracknell. So I think he probably does end up knocking him out. But yeah.
I will say, kind of to Pepe's point, because I actually kind of see the angle. Like the Alvey fight, Cracknell literally just walked forward at him with his chin in the air. And the Rod fight was kind of like similarly weird.
But do you think Petrino's just going to engage in that like outside kicking game though?
No, but I don't think Petrino cuts off the cage particularly well, to be quite honest. Like, I don't think he's going to have Cracknell just sitting on the center line waiting for him, I think it's an interesting take. I don't know. I kind of lean Cracknell. Pepe leans the GTD. That might be the alpha of the week if that hits.
I did play the GTD. I already played the GTD plus 300. I don't really see like why it's like a lock that it's gonna finish in the first round. Like Cracknell just he fights like a pussy now. Like he knows that he has no chin, so he just like doesn't really engage.
It is true. Even in the Linz fight, he avoided engagements.
Linz is a big hitter. He's like a similar striker to Petrino. I don't like that fight went to decision pretty easily. I remember everyone and their mother was parlaying like the under in that fight, and it was just like the easiest GTD ever.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's an interesting look. Moving on, though, we got Edgar Chairez taking on Tatsuro Taira. Taira also a huge favorite. He's minus 1,100. Comeback on Chairez plus 725. Thoughts here, Pepe?
I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I was looking at the over 1.5 and Taira by decision plus 500. I don't know. I think that's a super crazy number for this fight. Like Chairez isn't that big of a bum, and Taira went to decision with Candelario. I don't really see how it's like that hot of a take that this guy can survive 15 minutes with him.
Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really hate that take. I just kind of think Taira owns him in the grappling. I mean, I think Chairez is pretty tragic in general once it hits the mat. So, I mean, I think Taira probably can finish him later in the fight, but yeah.
I actually agree with you, Pepe, a fair amount on this. I mean, Chairez fought, he lost, obviously, but like he spent, I think 6+ minutes on the ground with Carpenter in his contenders fight. And Carpenter is a pretty decorated jiu-jitsu player and didn't really ever get close to subbing him on the mat. Look, I
would rate Taira much higher. Yeah.
Would you?
Like submission grappling? Yeah, over Carpenter.
He's not that much better than him at submission grappling. Carpenter is solid.
That's what I'm saying. Like Carpenter is like a really good submission grappler. I would say Taira's probably better, but Carpenter didn't really get past like full guard that often in that fight. So yeah, I kind of agree completely. I think the Taira decision line is kind of nuts at plus 500. Same thing with GTD here. I'll probably take a small stab at both. Yeah, go Taira, go by decision.
Yeah.
Moving on. Yeah,
I see Evan is in the chat just like trying to roast me for all these decision props, but he was the one that shouted me out for hitting the Romanov by unanimous decision at plus 600 last week. So
that was amazing. Feels really bad that I bet Blagoy, to be quite honest. Moving on, we got Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Menefield. Lags, what are your thoughts here?
It seems like everybody's betting Crute this week because of a perceived big grappling edge that they saw in the last fight, and I don't really see it. Like we kind of saw him struggle early in that fight. We didn't really see him have perceived grappling edge until later in that fight. Crute's there to get hit. Menefield definitely I think can stuff, like I said, like I talked about, stuff the early takedowns. I feel like the side is still probably Menifeld, but I'm not eager to play to pick him when I had plus 185 last time. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's more or less like my view. I was chatting about this with Chad earlier today, and like I had plus 195 the first time. All of Menifield's finish props are priced way lower, and now it's plus 100. But like with that said, I still sort of feel like Menifield is the side. I don't know if I want to play it at the current price, but like I think at plus 125 I would. I guess my view is, if you told anybody going into last fight that Crute was going to get 7 minutes of control and 6 takedowns, I think anybody's view would have been Crute's going to dominate this fight. Instead, he got 6 takedowns, 7 minutes of control. And I mean, let's be honest, he lost the fight. Without Menifield losing a point late in that fight, he loses it. And I actually think Menifield stuffing TDs this time is pretty live. Like, he is a very good defensive wrestler. And even if he doesn't stuff them, I don't think Crute's very likely to control him in the first 7-8 minutes of the fight. And if that's not happening, I feel like Menifield's the much better striker. We saw that in the last fight. I think he's got considerably more finishing equity personally. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Crute could do the same thing, grind him out. Maybe he gets more control in round 1 this time and doesn't get wobbled. But I don't know. Considering I give Menifield a bigger edge to finish, and like we've already seen Menifield show he's capable of winning a decision in this exact same fight, it's kind of hard for me to not favor him. I'm kind of targeting plus 125. I haven't played anything yet. Pepe, what are your thoughts?
I mean, to give Crute like some flowers for the last performance, like the first 3 minutes of the fight, he was kind of owning him and grappling.
Yeah.
He just went for, that stupid guillotine, and I think there's ways for him to approach his fight that would be like a little more safe, and like instead of hunting for like low probability submissions, just like getting him down and just like control grappling and like tiring him out and kind of grinding him out like that. I guess that would pay a little credence to an over or like a GTD,
Yeah.
I guess, which is like a common theme that I've been going with. But the GTD numbers seem to be pretty crazy this week.
You see
This
the over is minus 115 for over 1.5 here.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the finishing upside is like in the first 1.5. So I think if I was going to do over,
Yeah.
I would do GTD again. And it's plus 275 here. And like we just saw this fight go to decision. And granted, Crute was almost finished. I think like I said, I think there's other ways for him to approach the fight that are a little safer. And I know, it's not common sense, or it is common sense, like for him to, mitigate some risk here by
Yeah.
just using control grappling. So Crute decision plus 600. I might have a little bit of that.
I was gonna say, Pepe, what's the Crute unanimous decision? You going
Yeah,
for
I
that this
know.
week?
No, those aren't out yet. Those aren't out yet. They're still reeling from last week's damage.
That's an interesting take. I don't hate it. Moving on. Interesting fight here. Pepe, curious to hear your thoughts. We got Yasmin Uregi taking on Denise Gomez. Uregi really chalked up here, minus 400. Come back on Gomez, plus 300. You feeling the dog, or you think Uregi cruises?
I'm not really too sure. I definitely favor Mexico here. But I definitely would not bet her. Um, but what I ended up playing for this fight is the over 2.5. Minus 155. She's tough as hell. Like she's not gonna go out like Estella did in that last fight. And Uragi's tough as hell too. So you just have two super tough 115ers who like are like I just don't price a finish as high as they have it right now, and I feel good about that. I looked at Bet MMA and everyone's on the under 2.5, so I feel even better about the over in this spot.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, again, I mean, kind of similar to a fight we talked on earlier. I feel like most of the finishing upside is on the Uregi side. So again, the over is probably not a bad look. But yeah, I get. I mean, the money line for sure is definitely a bit out there, but like I do think Uregi's cleaner, crisper offensively and defensively. I think Gomez is there to get hit and cracked. It wouldn't shock me if Uregi drops her, but yeah, to Pepe's point, I don't think she finishes her. I think for the most part, it's just Uregi outclassing her probably for 15.
Yeah, I like the over as well. I've considered a play on Gomez just because I think Uregi's like a really strong prospect. Obviously, she's got great cardio, crazy output, and actually is a decent hitter for a female fighter, which is an incredible base for women's MMA. But with that said, I still think she's pretty raw in her development. You know, we saw Estella drop her in her last fight. Obviously, Lucindo landed on her loads in their fight. And yeah, I mean, I think Uregi's a lot better than Denise Gomez, but Gomez rocking her a couple times and or just landing a couple takedowns mixed in as well, to me seems like a plausible enough outcome or something that could happen consistently enough that plus 300 doesn't make terribly much sense unless you think Uregi's finishing this fight at like a 50% clip or so, which I don't think she is, since I agree with you guys on the over. But yeah, I mean, I like the over and the goes the distance more than anything else here. But yeah, I'm kind of tempted by Gomez. I do think she's got some moment-based upside here. And while I don't think she's a great grappler, you know, she has shown some willingness to go to it from time to time. And I do think that's kind of a hole in Uregi's game that no one really has tried to exploit yet. So I think Gomez is interesting. I think the goes the distance is interesting. Moving on. Shit show here. We got Jack Della Maddalena taking on Josiah Harrell. Another huge price here. Maddalena minus 900. Harrell plus 600. Lags, what do you think?
Again, like Harrell's got some grappling upside a little bit, but it's at a low level. I think Jack absolutely smokes him. I don't think he touches really much grappling success at all.
Yeah, the first thing I read about Harrell was that he was like an Ohio State national champion, which is like, I mean, they're a pretty good wrestling state. So I was immediately intrigued because I had bet Brady big against Jack, and I still think Jack's grappling is, I wouldn't even say it's an open question mark. I feel like reasonably sure it's not good. But then after taping it, yeah, I mean, kind of that point, I think I think he's undersized for 55, which is where he's been fighting. Like, frankly, I think this guy should be fighting closer to 45 with his frame. Now he's taking this on short notice at 170. I don't actually think, I mean, you can see the wrestling background when you watch him fight, but I don't think it's very optimized for the cage. Between that and the size of Jack, I think it's going to be pretty tough to take him down. Even if he gets him down, I'm not really sold on this guy having like the kind of jiu-jitsu necessary to kind of get to dominant positions and control Jack here. And on the feet, look, I mean, Jack's just going to murder him there. Could you say 90% is high for Jack? Like, sure. Again, like, I don't think he's a great grappler, but I don't know, man. Short notice fight. They're pretty clearly making this for Jack to get a highlight reel KO, in my opinion. I'm happy to pass it and pray that Harrell doesn't like kill the future grappler fade equity here. What do you think, Pepe?
Yeah, this is one fight where I won't be touching the GTD. Yeah, it's just like clearly a squash matchup.
Yeah.
You know, Jack is probably value up to like minus 2,000. I don't know. I don't think there's props out, so I haven't been able to like see anything. But I would imagine he's gonna get the round 1 KO. But
looks like there are props now. Jack round 1. Well, Jack round 1 in general is minus 200. So
that's not too bad.
It's not horrible, but
yeah, Jack
minus 185 by KO.
I was gonna say minus 285. I see 285.
No, round 1 KO is minus 185.
Yeah, I was on the Brady train too, at plus 165. So that was fucking lame.
Pretty unfortunate, and the worst part is like Jack's gonna knock him out, and they're gonna give us Joaquin Buckley. So there's not even gonna be. I mean, I'm not betting Joaquin Buckley against Jack. So
no, I would bet Jack.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
eventually we'll get him.
Yeah, I mean, he goes far enough at 170. It's a Shark Tank of grapplers. The thing is, like,
Yeah.
I feel like it could be one of those stupid situations where, like, he moves up and it's like, okay, he's getting like Shavkat or Hamzat or Colby. They're all going to be like decent sized faves against him, you know? Like Brady coming off a loss felt like the perfect spot.
Or if John gets Chiesa.
I don't feel great about that. Moving on though, Nico Price, Robbie Lawler. Cool fight. Price, pretty big favorite, minus 260 to plus 220 for Lawler. There's a part of me that wants to bet Lawler here. It's just like, I'm like pretty sketched out by the fact that it's like, he's been very open that this is his retirement fight. It's going to be his last fight in the UFC. Obviously he cardio melted in the last fight, but at the same time, man, like Nico Price just looks like an absolute corpse to me. Like this guy just does not look, he looks honestly more regressed off his prime than Robbie does. Like even that Rowe fight, he's moving slow. Nico never had great defensive tools in general. All he had was like insane physicality and like dynamic power, but that seems to be dipping and his cardio seems to be falling off a cliff and he looks slow. So like, there's a part of me that feels like I should bet Robbie. I keep seeing in my mind's eye, you know, the way Lawler kind of like went off a cliff in round 2 against Barberena, and that scares me. But at the same time, I do think there is some like justification for taking perhaps a little pre-fight Lawler, maybe Lawler round 1 and looking to get out of it live. I'm thinking about it. I think Lawler's clearly the side. Like Nico Price in 2023 being minus 260 just doesn't make much sense to me. Pepe, what do you think?
I don't have anything here, but I do agree. Nico has been looking. He fell off a cliff, man. And I see that he's been posting pictures with Ben Askren. So I'd imagine his game plan is going to try to wrestle here.
Yeah.
He tried to wrestle a bit against Rowe, but wasn't able to. Like he wasn't able to get him down really. But Lawler has like even worse takedown defense, I would imagine, at this point in his career. So, you know, I think he does have a path with the takedowns. But I don't really have any interest on either of the money line sides, really. Like, I guess if anything, I would be aiming for another over. If it's
I was
a
actually
big
surprised
number.
you weren't gonna
Yeah,
lead off with
I
that.
just I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but I do I do like over.
That's the call sign.
It's
Is
a
like I don't
theme.
bet on violence.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's Pepe Algo.
It's a theme for this card.
boring card with what on paper looked like high action.
Yeah.
Lags, what are your thoughts?
But yeah, no, yeah. To lead off with that, yeah, a couple of fights ago, I was looking at this matchup. I'm like, Pepe is definitely gonna have an over bet here. Nico's gonna wrestle. He's gonna have an over bet here. But yeah, I mean, yeah, similar thoughts to you, John. Lawler is 100% this side, but like his defense also looked really shit in that Barberena fight. So like, I feel like these guys end up swinging, and Nico probably just ends up catching him at some point. It just looks like a minus EV, like minus 260 type of thing. I have no interest here. Complete pass.
I do think Nico is like a lot slower than even Barb is
Yeah.
at this point in his career, and
See,
it was more of like an attritional finish. Like Barberena put up like a fucking
130
crazy
strikes, I think.
Yeah,
and then even like the first round, he threw like 70 strikes.
Yeah, like that's just not gonna happen from Nico. Like everything is like you can see it coming a mile away. And same with Lawler. Like they're both like super slow at this point in their career. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really see a finish happening.
Well, I guess I feel like it could be similar to like the Cerrone fight, where it's like Nico has a great first round. He's just in his face, like physicality wise, and then he just kind of gasses from throwing all that shit. And then we just kind of get like a slower pace fight that ends up going the distance.
I guess I'm kind of I mean, I guess you can't really say Nico's as far gone as like Nick Diaz was when they fought. But at the same time, dude, I've seen videos of this guy hitting pads in the last year, man. He looks unwell. Like he does not look like a professional athlete right now. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting.
What's the thing? Who's he even training with? Like other like not even asking like
Pepe
before,
said
like,
Askren,
before
but
Askren. Like
He
before
was
Askren.
at
No,
Who was he training with?
Rufus Sport too.
Really?
was
No.
he?
Yeah, he posted on Instagram at Rufus, I'm pretty sure.
That's a bearish signal. Moving on though. This is an it's not an exciting one. Who am I trying to kid
Oh,
here?
it is.
Really
Oh, it
trying
is,
to
John.
hype
It's
this.
Bo Nickal.
We
fight
got Bo
week, baby.
Nickal taking on Valentine Woodburn. I was actually, Nickal's minus 2,500, Woodburn's plus 1,200. It's really, you're trying to, if you want to bet on this fight, you're trying to dissect what happens. Like, I actually had some interest in betting over against Gore just because I feel like Gore's defensive grappling is probably better than the market was giving him credit for. Like, I felt like Nickal would eventually break him, but him keeping it upright for a bit and Gore just getting off his back a few times was in play. I don't see it here. Woodburn's a short notice bum that they're just feeding the Bo. There's no props on it yet. The under 1.5 is minus 425, which again seems completely insane. But I'm not betting a guy against Bo or trying to bet overs against Bo Nickal on 3 days notice. Pepe, do you disagree? Are you going over here? You gonna give GTD?
Let's see. What are we doing with you? I might bet this Woodburn fella. I bet Gore money line and by submission before the fight got canceled. It was like plus 3,300.
Yeah.
By submission.
My God.
Yeah, it was just like a really small bet, and like a quarter unit on money line. But I haven't taped Woodburn yet, so I'm not sure.
Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't offer much either. I haven't taped Woodburn either, but it's Bo Nickal fight week, Penn State, baby.
I do think we're reaching the point with Bo where it's like sometime soon we're gonna get someone who's like plus 800 that should probably be like plus 150 or evens with Bo. He's obviously a super talent. Like I don't think any of us would deny that, but the guy's got 4 professional fights and his best win is Jamie Pickett, and he's starting to get priced like he's prime Habib Nurmagomedov. I don't know. It's getting crazy.
Has he taken a punch yet? Like, I'm not even sure.
I don't think so. Literally, I'll tell you right now. Let's see I know he didn't regionally. Bo Nickal.
The real question is, do you think when do you think they give him like a
6 strikes? No, 1 strike. One
strike. So we don't even know if he can take a punch.
Or if he even has defense. We have no idea.
Right. And
I was gonna say,
people want to like just crown him like the next like title challenger. It's ridiculous.
What were you gonna say, Legs?
Yeah, I was just gonna add. When do you guys think that like they're gonna give him like a commensurate test? Like even somebody where it's like not even like two, 3 fights at least.
Well, I don't think the commission will really approve anyone until he has like at least like
5.
6 or 7 wins probably.
Yeah, I'm with you though. Like I feel like we're almost getting to the point. I said it last year about Kayla Harrison before the Pacheco fight, but it's like the lines are getting so absurd that it's almost like at this point, if you just martingale the opposite side of Bo Nickal, eventually you're going to cash big and make up for it all. Like either he's the best MMA fighter to ever do it with 4 fights, or you could just bet half a unit, and it'll eventually turn to profit. Which obviously isn't the best way to look at things. But look at Aaron Pico. Aaron Pico might legitimately be the best prospect in MMA, and the dude started his career 4-3. Weird shit happens in MMA. So we'll see. Moving on. Great fight here, though. Dan Hooker taking on Jalen Turner. Lags, what are your thoughts?
I laid the juice here on the under 2.5. I still think even at minus 200 that it is good, honestly. I know, chalk boy. But yeah, I think Turner, I think the power, I think the speed early here. I just don't think the durability is there for Hooker. So yeah, I think Turner makes it pretty easy.
I was like, I don't know. It's kind of funny because like going into the tape for this week, I was like, I think I'm probably going to end up coming out betting Hooker. And like coming out of it, I was like, I probably would have taken Turner at the minus 180 that was out there for months. Like I think I would need a pretty big number to get to Hooker. With that said, I guess the concern is, and we're all going to say it, but like Turner is gigantic, has incredibly fast, and has insane hardware. And Hooker's durability is clearly declining, as is his speed. But I will say this to give Hooker some credence here. I don't think Turner has much defense at all. The guy defends distance strikes at 42%. He was knocked out regionally multiple times. Like, you don't usually see that. And I do, by the way, I think he is a great prospect who's going places. But, like, those are usually issues that can plague, like, tall fighters forever. And so, like, I think if Hooker can get inside, I think he could make this a fight and possibly even finish Turner in this fight. I just question whether he can do that early. I think he's going to have to go through absolute hell for the first 5 to 7 minutes of this fight until Jalen starts to kind of slow down. I don't really see Hooker being able to have much, if any at all, grappling success against Turner. I actually think the under 1.5 is not bad, plus 103, kind of for the reasons I mentioned. Like, Turner's going to bring it to Hooker early in this fight, and I think there is some potential KO equity on the Hooker side too early. I think most of the finishing equity in this fight is likely pretty early in the fight. So I kind of lean under. I haven't betted. I might. But yeah, I don't have much else to say. What do you think, Pepe?
Did you say you didn't see Hooker having any grappling success against Turner?
I'd be a little surprised. I mean, he could get him down, right? But I think Turner's defensive grappling is pretty on point. I was impressed by the game.
I wouldn't be that surprised, and I bet Turner. His, like, once you get him down, he has like a hard time working his way back up. So
if he gets flattened out in his back, he does. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, Hooker doesn't have like great wrestling, but like he's been going to it a little bit more than he used to. Like, now that he's like a little more shot in the striking and a little more fragile. But yeah, I think if he doesn't wrestle, he's pretty fucked. I got on yeah.
I was gonna say, even if he wrestles, though, it's like that. Like, I feel like most of Hooker's takedowns historically come against the fence, and I feel like Turner against the fence is pretty good at getting up. Like, you kind of need to get him down like flat on his back, you know?
Yeah. I guess I just wouldn't be shocked if he was able to get him down and able to like steal rounds like that. But I definitely do heavily favor Turner. I think like I think the money line is about right. I got him at minus 140. He opened minus 130 on DraftKings. And I think the biggest thing I'm worried about now is just that everyone played him, and it just kind of feels like the potential mush of the week. But I do like Turner a lot as a prospect, and hope he gets it done.
Yeah, Sam. Moving on. Banger fight here. Robert Whittaker taking on Dricus Du Plessis. It's puke worthy to say it for me after how much I've tried to fade Dricus, but like I'm kind of considering taking a poke at Dricus here. I don't feel great about it. Like, we all know Whittaker's the better fighter. He's obviously the better grappler. He's the better striker by a lot. I think Whittaker has a lot of finish upside himself, but I also feel like a guy like Du Plessis, who's shown that he's very durable, is an elite hitter, and that despite the fact that he can't breathe through his nose and looks gassed every fight, will just keep coming until either he's dead or you're dead. It's kind of like what you're looking for in this kind of spot out of a plus 300. Like, he's an explosive hitter. Whittaker, we've seen hurt many times in his career. Like, I wouldn't say he's fragile, but, Darren Till hurt Whittaker. Romero hurt him multiple times, obviously. Obviously, Adesanya did multiple times. I feel like Dricus KO alone probably has to be near his money line price. And so if that's the case, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to see a guy with like Dricus's kind of skill set and just inherent danger that's always present for him to be worse than like plus 200. I haven't done it, but like I'm thinking about taking a small poke here. Am I crazy, Pepe? What do you think?
Well, the way I played it was the under 2.5. And I think you absorb a lot of DDP's win condition when betting the under. And I do give Rob a bit of finishing upside too. Another spot I liked for this fight was Whittaker by submission plus 1,600, and I might even look to get like sub 2 and sub 3 for like even bigger prices. But yeah, I think that's just a crazy number for like the skill set of Rob. Like he doesn't get a lot of submissions, but like obviously he's capable. He's a solid grappler himself, and I Dricus isn't just like the kind of guy who's just like gonna go out cold. I could see him getting clubbing subs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Brunson got to pretty dominant positions against him too. So, what do you think, Lags?
Yeah, I agree with Pepe on the undertake though. I just feel like how Dricus is going to approach this fight. Like I feel like again, like you touched on a little bit, the win condition of him, I feel like is pretty much priced into the under. He's going to have to go for it against Rob. I think Rob's just too technical and kind of can outclass him from the outside. So yeah, I mean, I think the under 2.5 at -160 captures a lot of again Rob's finishing upside, and then most of DDP's win equity.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, co-main event. It's the third meeting, if you count tough, between Brandon Moreno and Alexandre Pantoja. Moreno -120 or -190. Pantoja +165. Lags, what are your thoughts?
I think the line's getting a bit out there on the Moreno side, just because I mean, like I favor him like the volume cardio over 25, but I feel like early it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be tough for him to hold Pantoja down. I don't know. I would lean more so again, like on the Pepe algo here. I would lean the GTD and the overs here.
Pepe, what do you think?
Yeah, I like the GTD in this fight too.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, plus money. I got plus money on the GTD here. They're both super durable. You know, Pantoja's obviously never been finished, but you know, he hasn't gone a full 5. You know, and I think the big narrative is that he slows down and he's not going to have the cardio to go 5 rounds, but the dude's training at ATT. He's got awesome training partners. He's a super smart fighter. Like I think he'll come in with the proper game plan. And I even think the number on Pantoja decision is kind of wide. Plus 500. By split decision plus 1,200. I took like a real small piece of both of those and the GTD.
Yeah, I think that's pretty wild. Those numbers on Pantoja decision. I have like no bet here. I kind of agreed on the GTD just because. I mean, I love Moreno, but even the 2 fights he finished Fig, one was a doctor's stoppage, and the other one, Fig kind of just like showed up without like a chin in that fight and just had nothing the entire fight. Like I don't
a bad weight cut too.
Yeah, but like I don't think Moreno is going to sub Pantoja. That would be very, very surprising to me. And he hasn't really throughout this run really been the guy to like step on the gas like hard to finish guys. Like even the KKF fight, he finished him, but it was a body kick. And Pantoja's historically been very durable. In terms of the fight itself, I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that's like, man, Pantoja, if he actually decided to fight intelligently and not go super aggro early in this fight, I do think has the tools to just outstrike Moreno here. Like, that would not shock me at all. We saw that happen before. Obviously, they're different fighters now. Moreno, in particular, is significantly better, but Moreno's still got a lot of holes standing. We've seen them every fight, and I think Pantoja could theoretically capitalize on them. The concern is just outside of the cop fight, we see Pantoja go super hard early every fight, and I just don't think he has a great shot to get Moreno out of there. And if he doesn't, obviously the cardio between these two guys is a pretty large gap in favor of Moreno. So I'd favor Moreno pretty heavily down the stretch. I don't think taking a early, like maybe a pre-fight poke on Pantoja and looking to kind of bet into Moreno is a crazy look, though. Like I think Pantoja is going to compete hard early in this fight. I might even favor him in the first round or two. So
I don't get why people think that like there has to be a finish in this fight. Like I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean Moreno, it's not like he's outside of that one Fig fight, like he's not dropping like many people at all. I mean, the guy went to decision with Jose Formiga,
Yeah. He kind of he looked like shit last fight too.
He did, and I 2 fights ago too. I felt like it's funny because I think it actually is almost like a similar narrative going into that fight, which was Moreno should cardio KKF down the stretch. But I actually felt like prior to KKF like eating the body shot that put him out, he was kind of starting to take over the fight, which was pretty surprising. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's Pantoja or pass. I don't really see how you can be very confident. And I don't think Moreno is going to fuck around on the ground much. And if he's not going to do that, he's not really inherently a minus 200 striker against many guys, you know?
Yeah, like Pantoja's able to strike composed. Like, just watch the cop fight. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
he was able to just like fight super composed, super sharp. Didn't get dragged into like a firefight. I know like Manel didn't really do too much to like make it a crazy pace, but I think Moreno can get dragged into like a similar fight that's just like low volume kickboxing.
Yeah, I agree completely. Moving on, main event. I'll throw it to you, Pepe. We got Alexander Volkanovski minus 400. Comeback on Yair Rodriguez plus 300. You famously cashed Yair Rodriguez by submission against Josh Emmett. Are we riding Mexico this week again?
Oh man, I want to so bad, but like then again, like Volk has been my man too. Like my ROI on these two guys is just like insane. I love both of them. I cashed on Islam decision against Volk last time, and before that, I had bet on him like 4 fights in a row. Um, but I did bet the under 4.5 here. I don't know if I love it though. Um, I don't know. I think early Yair's gonna give Volk a lot of problems, or has the potential to give him a lot of problems. You know, but I think he's drawn kind of thin once it gets out of like round two. Um, so I don't really know how much finishing upside he has later in the fight. So I don't know. I felt like I was kind of betting on a Yair finish by betting the under 4.5. So I think that's all I'm gonna stick with for now.
Lags, how about you?
So I got two bets here. The fight doesn't go the distance at plus 124, and then Volk on the minus 5.5 spread at minus 160. Well, I'll add with the doesn't go though. Volk is 100% capable of finishing this fight, and I think actually more likely to finish the fight after again outside that round two. I think he can put on a grappling clinic here. Really, I think that's probably the smartest decision here. And yeah, I mean I think this is a fairly easy matchup for Volk in my opinion, personally.
Yeah, I bet I have under the under 4.5, and I bet Volk ITD. I guess my view is I think Volk's finishing ability is kind of almost like the perception of it is worse than it is because he had, across a 5-fight span, he had a fight with Jose Aldo and 3 fights with Max Holloway. Holloway, obviously one of the most durable guys ever. Plus, those were super tactical fights. The Aldo fight, he just kind of did what was given to him. And just easily clinched him up. But if you look at the fights outside of that, he finished Chad Mendez, who suffered from like a pretty bad like cardio fall off there. The Ortega fight didn't finish him, but it could have been stopped like a million different times. Like the guy landed, I think, 53 significant ground strikes in that fight, just completely poured it on there. And he wasn't even actively grappling in that fight. And then obviously he finished Korean Zombie. I kind of think people, and then, I mean, even go back early in his career, he finished Jeremy Kennedy, who's a very good grappler on the mat. He has a couple ground stoppages. And I look here and I feel like, Max did some work on top of Yair and got him down pretty easily. Like, I think if Volk takes the optimal path to victory, which he's one of the smartest fighters ever, I'm kind of expecting him to, he's going to grapple. And I just don't really, not that I don't see Yair surviving. That's wrong. I could definitely see him surviving, but I feel like if Volk comes out grappling from the jump here, he's probably going to get takedowns pretty easy. And it could look a lot like Edgar and Yair did. Granted, that was a doctor stoppage, but over 5, if it's just Volk pouring it on, I kind of expect him to stop him there. I honestly wouldn't even be that surprised by a sub. But if he doesn't take the optimal path here, I do think Yair definitely has the capabilities to knock Volk out in space, which is kind of like why I like the under. Like, I would say the only real weakness in Volk's entire game is I don't think he's got A+ durability. I think he's more of like an average, has like average durability. We've seen the guy get hurt multiple times throughout his career. Hasn't been finished, but it doesn't mean it won't happen. And Yair's dynamic. But I do think he's probably going to grapple, and I think he should obliterate him if that happens, especially because Volk's got elite cardio. When we've seen Yair's gas tank start to flag hard, the later fights go. The Holloway fight, obviously a perfect example. Even Jeremy Stevens, did work to him on top in round 3 of that fight. So, yeah, I mean, look, I bet plus 250 where it is now, plus 145-ish. I think it depends more on Volk's approach, whether or not that's, a decent bet or not. But I do like this fight to end inside the distance. I think Yair's got plenty of finishing upside if Volk keeps it at range. And like I said, I think if Volk takes the path of least resistance, he's going to finish at a very high clip here. So, yeah, I mean, I like the fight to end. I like Volk. I like Volk inside the distance. In my opinion, Volk's approaching maybe the best ever. I love Yair as a fighter, but I think it's a pretty tall order here.
Those kicks he was landing on Emmett in the first round were absolutely brutal. Like the body kicks that he was landing, and he just keeps getting better and better. I'm excited for this fight.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, even if Volk decides to grapple, it should be like his Volk's grappling is fun at least. So there is that. But yeah, I mean, you guys, Pepe, anything to add? You want to shout out anything before we sign off here?
No, I got nothing to shout out or plug this time around.
All right. Well, Pepe is way too humble, guys. Go give him a follow. Pepe_Silvia 716. One of the sharpest guys out there. Pumped to have you on tonight, Pepe. Thanks for showing up with us. Guys, again, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. As always, you can find me, John, on Twitter at MMA Fox, Lags at Danny_Lags. And good luck on your bets this weekend, everybody. Let's make some money. Later, guys.
See ya.